I'm honored to be here with two of the most exceptional technologists in the world and entrepreneurs. Each one of them has been a serial entrepreneur and an investor in using technology to transform businesses and really the world. If you haven't read their bios, you really should. They're unbelievably impressive people. Joe Lonsdale is probably best known for founding Palantir, but he's founded 6 companies that have all reached over $1 billion, which is unbelievable. And Thomas Tull, who runs Tulco now, is a person who has transformed many businesses using AI and technology. He's probably best known still for founding Legendary Entertainment, but you're going to find his current company, Tulco, is involved pretty much in every aspect of technology innovation. So I'm going to start with the question we're probably all wondering about the United States. Are we still exceptional at technology? Where are we with American exceptionalism in technology? Let me start with you, Joe. How do you think the United States is doing?
You know, there's this concept in economics where you just see like what actually people want. You see what their actual revealed preference is. And there's more people still trying to come into the US than any other country in the world. And this is definitely true as well for the top of our tech sector. The reason America has been exceptional in this area is because we've built some of the most interesting companies. We've attracted the best and brightest to keep coming in. And you know, America's nearest competitors for a while, I'd say, were probably China, as well as a couple others. And China's really shot itself in the foot in the last few years. So I think America is definitely pulling ahead, is definitely the place where the most competent technology companies exist in the world.
Well, that's good to hear. We hear a lot about things we're losing in the American spirit. Thomas, do you agree with Joe? You think we're still that exceptional? Pulling in front of the Chinese is something I would love to hear personally. I haven't heard that in a while. What do you think?
Well, look, I think America is exceptional, and certainly in the tech sector. I think we need to continue to innovate and be a little paranoid about that. China is a formidable adversary.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I think the ecosystem that we've fostered across the capital stack so that you have seed, you have growth, you have all those different things. And to Joe's point, people want to come here. They want to start companies. You know, I know even given my own background, you can come from anywhere in this country, and that's one of the things I love about it.
And let's just sort of mention, Thomas literally came from nothing. Give us just 2 seconds on your background, because it's so inspirational, and it is the American dream, really.
Well, I grew up in upstate New York and with a single mom who had me at a young age, and you know, in this country, you can do that.
And we still believe that.
I absolutely do.
Well, I'm as an entrepreneur myself, I love hearing that. I'm first generation American, so nothing inspires me more. But Joe, you just said in the last couple years, China's really messed it up. What does that mean? Were you more worried about them a few years ago?
You know,
I'm
still very worried about China on the defense side, because China is graduating a huge number of top engineers. Yeah. And they're able to recruit their best and brightest into defense in a way that our country has not. So China's still, as Thomas said, a very formidable threat. In terms of the general technology sector, they've basically attacked it like viciously over the last 3 years. I think Xi Jinping effectively decided that he didn't like it that all the smart young kids wanted to be technologists, and these technologists were becoming the most powerful part of his society. And you've seen tens of them disappear, have their companies stripped from them. It's very clear the CCP controls the major companies in China. Any entrepreneur in China who's been successful, their incentive is not to keep building. Whereas in the case of Thomas and myself and many of our friends, you look at Elon Musk, you look at all the people they're building multiple big important companies. And so you see this as a huge advantage in the US, is that we don't attack and strip down and get rid of our most successful people. Whereas in China, those people are really hampered and not encouraged to keep going.
Okay, you mentioned military spending in tech. I know you're both very deep in investing in companies and technology that will actually help the American military. I want to really deep dive into that. Thomas, I know you are very focused on this area. Tell us why. Tell us why this is a passion and what you hope to achieve.
Well, I think we have a fantastic military full of men and women that put themselves in harm's way. And I think that we owe it, the private sector owes it to these folks to bring the very best across to put them in as safe a position as they can be. And frankly, I hope we live eventually in a world where the United States and China can be cooperative, but that's not where we find ourselves today. And I think you have to be in a position of strength, to be able to successfully navigate that. So I think it's very important to take the advances that we have in the private sector and make sure those things are widely available to parts of government.
And either one of you, tell me why investing in technology and private sector companies is going to work for the government. Are they a good partner? How is this working?
Well, I mean, they're not an easy partner to work with. When we
Yeah.
started Palantir nearly 2 decades ago, it took a lot of persistence and a lot of work to break in. But ultimately, you're able to save the government billions of dollars. You're able to help them take out thousands of people who would attack us, who otherwise we would not have been able to take out. And you're able to protect civil liberties because you put in structures and rules and frameworks. With more advanced technology, it's very clear who's seeing what, who's doing what the rules are. And so you can both get the bad guys and do it in a cleaner way, and do it a safer way. And today, there's all sorts of new possibilities with new technology. And Thomas and I are both really interested in directed energy, for example, companies like Epirus. It's possible to turn off the bad guys' drones, tanks, cars, trucks from miles away. It's possible to turn off missiles incoming from miles away. This is a technology that attacks electronics but not people, so it's really positive for modern warfare to be able to, defend yourself without hurting people. And there's things like this that, it's important America has the best technology there and not our adversaries.
That's fascinating. I would also think that the private sector is better at attracting the best technology talent, right? I mean, you're on the board of MIT. Tell us about the talent play.
Well, I think that obviously government doesn't pay the same, but there are many patriotic folks coming out of schools and sectors that want to help. The other thing that I'll say, just in terms of why it's harder, there are very good reasons over 50, 60 years ago that bureaucratic levels were created at the Pentagon so that things were competitive bids. Now the problem with that is those rules were not put in place and didn't contemplate the velocity of technology that we have today. And I think this year in particular, when you've seen what's happened in the Taiwan Strait, certainly in the Ukraine and a few other examples, I feel like there's different body language now coming out of Washington, and I think everybody understands we need to work together.
Anything else you want to say on this before we pivot? I mean, where do you think, are we in the beginning of this public-private partnership really in a big way in technology and military? Where is it going to go?
So you saw Palantir and SpaceX kind of break in and kind of prove to the government that by being 10 times better than what they were doing, we're able to kind of break in and knock down those barriers.
Yeah.
Then now you have companies like Anduril and Epirus and others kind of pushing even faster and winning contracts as outside companies, which we hadn't seen in 30, 40, 50 years. What's one big thing that people have to understand is in the mid-20th century, innovation was extremely expensive, and you had from World War II just amazing leaders around government attracting the best and the brightest. And so you had the smartest people in our society working in government and with government.
Everyone wanted to work at NASA.
And the top innovators were there in the 50s and 60s. Our innovation is much cheaper. You have a lot more innovation funded externally. The best and the brightest are not in the government areas right now. At least, there's still amazing leaders in the DoD that I admire, but the technologists are not there. So if we're going to have the best technology to compete against our adversaries, to keep peace in the world, we need to partner with these top private companies. And the government's starting to do that a lot more.
Because we're talking about these very optimistic, patriotic topics, I must ask you, Thomas, you're an investor in Rebuild, which is focused on bringing U.S. manufacturing back in a big way, but you're using technology to do it. Tell the audience a little bit about that. That's very exciting.
So Rebuild is a company started by Jeff Wilke, the former president of Amazon, and Miles Arnon, a guy he went to MIT with. Jeff came to me, I think it was 3-ish years ago, and said, look, and this was pre-COVID, we're going to have a supply chain issue. We're losing our ability to do high-tech manufacturing here in the United States. That's a major strategic mistake. So myself, Jeff, David Siegel from Two Sigma, Will Barker from Camelot all made sizable investments into this, and it's working exceptionally well. And it's about making sure that those capabilities are here in the United States and that we continue to foster that environment.
All right, so this is all positive for the U.S. We still got the spirit, we still got the hustle, we still have the talent. We're going to have potentially win the arms race with China and technology, and our government, our military is going to improve. What are you worried about? What are you worried about for the U.S.?
Well, I mean, our regulatory state and the rules to build things here has made it a lot more difficult than it should be, right? And this is a nonpartisan thing. People on both sides are working on this, and you have tens of billions of dollars of green projects held up because it takes 10 years to get the bureaucrats to approve anything. And so we have to reform the rules for how we create things in this country. Rather than having 18 agencies and like multiple Native American tribes who could sue you over a decade, you need to get the process down to 1 or 2 years and make it so it's profitable to build infrastructure and to build things here. Otherwise, you're going to keep getting a manufacturing going offshore.
Okay, Thomas, what are you worried about?
Well, I agree with that, and I also think that just culturally, the United States, you know, it's an amazing place that you can voice your opinion, and you can say things that are controversial. You can, but I also worry that we've gotten to a place where you're not allowed to express yourself in all ways. People have lost a lot of ability to have spirited debate, but in a respectful way.
Yeah.
I worry sometimes that politically, if you can't say it on a bumper sticker, you know, then it's not worth saying. Yeah, so you know, the United States needs to come back together. Our leadership needs to foster that, and we need to understand that we're facing a lot of serious challenges, and that we need to come together as a country, and that's one of the things I think a lot about.
All right.
That's actually why, you know, we're starting this new university in Austin as well to train people to have this. To have, you know, University of Austin is starting with Barry Weiss, Neil Ferguson, myself, and a couple other friends. And the whole idea is we want to have a leadership class in America that knows how to have spirited debates that are respectful, knows how to disagree, knows how to pursue the truth, knows that if you experience a microaggression, that's good for you, and you could be stronger and don't be a wimp. And you know, these are types of things we need to put back into our youth to have real leaders who can boldly lead America forward and actually get to the right answers.
Well, I am inspired by both of you. I feel like the entrepreneur loser on this stage. It's unbelievable what you've created. I want to get a little personal and ask you, what is it about you guys that allows you to keep recreating, keep building another billion-dollar company? What drives you, what motivates you, and you know, what's very special about you? I know we don't like to brag about ourselves, but we really want to understand. What do you think is about you, Joe, that has allowed you to do this in a very short period of time? You're a young guy.
I turned 40 this week.
Oh, so, happy birthday.
Yeah, well, you know, I think in my case, I had a lot of big advantages growing up in Silicon Valley and being surrounded by a lot of very talented people. I generally like to, I guess I have a lot of strong opinions. I cause a lot of controversy.
Apparently,
with those.
I've heard.
But part of having strong opinions is that you see, here's how the world is now, and here's how I think it could work better. Here's how I think it should be, and then you have to convince other smart people to help you build and help you put it to where it should be. So I think being unsatisfied with things that are broken, being unwilling to let things stay broken is an important trait of an entrepreneur.
Unsatisfied with things that are broken. I love that. Thomas, how about you? You have such an amazing story. You are the American dream story. But what is it about you that allowed that to happen? But, you know, not just once, but twice, but 3 times.
Look, I think just the way you're wired. I mean, intellectual curiosity has been something that I've had since I was a kid. Learning how to be comfortable being uncomfortable.
Yeah.
I don't think we talk about grit enough these days. Just that you're going to get knocked down, your plan is going to get, you know, ripped apart. But what kind of pliability do you have? What kind of ability do you have to get up, reassess? What kind of intellectual honesty do you have to be able to self-assess? Yeah. And look, anybody that has come from where I've come from that doesn't recognize that there's a bit of game theory luck involved isn't being honest. I mean, I've been incredibly fortunate, and I think I feel like I'm getting away with something every day, so just going to keep moving.
Well, you know, one of my favorite frameworks that I read about was something called return on luck and luck moments. And they said the people that really max it out they do 2 things. They can turn a bad luck moment into a good luck moment, and they can recognize when they're in a good luck moment and just focus. So we all have good luck, but do we know when it's happening, and do we max it out? And so clearly you've maxed your good luck moments and your bad luck moments, which is pretty amazing. Let's talk about infrastructure a little bit, since we're talking so much about what needs to be fixed in the U.S. You're both interested in infrastructure investing too. Who wants to jump in on that one?
Sure. As a theme, maybe even one level above that is, in our world right now today, there's actually fixing substantively things we need to work on that are going to help everyone, and there's papering over problems. Mm-hmm. And right now, all around the world, rather than going to the core of the issues and building stuff like building infrastructure, whether it's Elon Musk's boring tunnels, whether it's all sorts of other things that are going to actually, make people's lives better, help the economy. People are much more interested in papering over and maybe giving people free money, but not actually making their lives substantively better. And you see this in the UK right now, where Russia propaganda has convinced them not to pursue energy independence, and instead they're papering over with $130 billion of free money for businesses. You see it in Turkey, they're handing out free money everywhere. You see it with, instead of fixing our university systems, making them accountable, we're just giving out free money for the loans. And so, infrastructure is one of the most kind of obvious ways to directly go in and do things that help the least well off, that shorten their commutes, that increase economic activity in these areas, that make it cheaper and easier to build, manufacturing and businesses. And so, it frustrates me because it used to be something you saw was a very kind of bipartisan thing that we definitely need. And now, rather than doing the hard work of reforming the permitting and actually making these things possible, actually partnering with entrepreneurs like Elon Musk, who could actually completely change how our cities work with the new technology. You see people instead, giving money to the environmental lawyers who are suing and stopping any of this from happening at all. And you see leaders who are afraid to speak up and push things forward. So it's an area where you actually need bold leaders who want to get things done, who want to push through, rather than acting as bureaucrats. And hopefully we see more of that.
Thomas, infrastructure?
Yeah, look, it used to be bipartisan. Bridges are crumbling. We need new bridges.
Right.
That shouldn't be that controversial. So I think there are base level things in infrastructure that need to be fixed and fixed quickly. The fact that we're sitting here in this country and talking about people not having safe water to drink is, that's unacceptable.
Yeah.
And I think that being able to have leadership, especially in Washington, that isn't just looking at re-election, but saying, look, the time that I've been given here, I'm supposed to get things done. And it's become so difficult to get anything done. And, what happens is you have people suffering, and that's not okay. So I think that it's a combination of being accountable and spending money the right way and having metrics that you can measure that success by. And then I think we need to continue to embrace technology and say, not only what infrastructure do we need today that is sort of base level, but what are the things we're going to be able to do tomorrow, right? Or can we 3D print vaccines, right? Can we do things that can raise everything? So those are some of the things that I think about.
And the accountability is really key. Everyone always says, "Oh, I spent $1 trillion in infrastructure." No, it's not what you spent. It's what's the accountability? Did you compete it? Did you get more done? If Elon could dig tunnels for $5 million a mile and you're doing it for $100 million a mile, you shouldn't be proud of spending that money. You're an idiot. You're just not getting the outcomes. Yeah, and when you have accountability, that's what lets innovation win. Because when you have accountability where you're going to compete things, then if we innovate and have a better idea, the innovation is going to win because it's going to do more for less.
Right.
But the innovation is not going to get in there and win if you're just giving it to cronies, if you're just giving it to the biggest government union to do it for 100 times the cost, which is literally 100 times the cost these days. I mean, it's a joke how bad it is. I think $4 billion for a couple blocks here for the subway, right? So these people are out of control, and there's no accountability.
So you guys build things, you invest in things. Obviously, you have to inspire people to do that. I always say I have my Jenisms at work. Do you have a couple of favorite things that you tell your people that are so important at the organizations you run?
Just a couple quick ones. I always talk about cause the outcome.
Okay.
Right? Don't just be a passenger, be active. And then I think, making sure that you build great culture that people feel a part of and that you have transparency. Those things are all very important today.
Great. Joe?
I think that's well said. I like hiring really smart, very junior people, and I tell them, I want you to pretend you're secretly in charge of the entire firm, but no one knows it, and it's your job to make it work. I want you to do your best, and I want you to come to me and figure it out.
That's awesome. All right, in the last few seconds we have, I'm going to call this Check This Out. I'd love you to tell the audience something you're fascinated with, like a book, a show, an app, something that they should check out that you're like, I think this is the coolest thing. Joe,
I'll
what
go
should the
first.
audience
Well,
check out?
I'll just mention the company Epirus. It's named after the bow of Theseus, which had infinite arrows. And it turns out that you can actually turn off electronics from tens of miles away by the end of the decade. Gallium nitride's doubling every 18 months. And this will completely change the future of the world based on how warfare determines what countries are optimal. So Balaji, I think, was just speaking earlier about small states. And I think it's worth reading about the history of how governments changed based on military technology, and then thinking about what this means, because I think it's going to completely change our ability to have city-states. And
Totally. So what should they check out? Is this, what should they read, or what should they
Well,
go
if you're
to?
interested in that topic in general, Philip Bobbitt's Shield of Achilles goes over the history of the last 1,000 years and how it changed thanks to warfare technology.
Awesome. Great one. Thomas, what should they
I was
check
gonna
out?
say, it's not going to be new news, but I just reread *Sapiens* for the second time. And I just get a lot out of that book and think it's really thought-provoking.
Amazing book. Well, I think you guys can all agree what an amazing panel we had today. Thank you all for coming. Appreciate it.